only hormone that protects us from weak bones. The number one intervention women can do to keep their bones strong from any point really, but particularly past menopause, is weight-bearing exercise. And that means putting your activating your muscles and putting your bones under strength, under resistance. Because I don't know if I can demonstrate this, but if I pull back there, you can see the muscle contracts, and it's when the muscle is pulling on the bone that the bone has to become stronger. Without that impetus, it's probably not demonstrating very well, but you can see the muscle kind of shortening up. Without that, there's no need for the bone to get stronger. What it does at that point is it activates there's plenty of osteoclasts and different things, osteoblasts in there that recruit minerals, vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, and the estrogen receptors are a part of that. But do we need HRT to protect our bones, or do we need weight-bearing exercise? Do we need to get out of our chairs more? Do we need vitamin C? Do we need vitamin D? Do we need boron? Do we need to make our bones stronger through eating better? I would say that's really where the answers lie. And what we're being sold at the moment is a lot of, you need a drug. You need a drug to fix something that's natural, and women are starting to believe that they've got a disease, which I think's a slippery slope to losing our power. Paddle tennis needs some help. Yep, cool. Gym, you need to do 100%. All right, let me share my screen, and I'll get everyone to give me the thumbs up to let me know that they can see my screen just in chat, if that's okay. Can everyone see my screen? Beautiful. And I'll just enlarge it as much as I can, and I'll hide myself. Wonderful. So use the chat whenever you like, and I'll get back to them as I can. Okay, so you're obviously motivated. It's the 2nd of January, 2026. And as I said, I've been doing this for a while, but you still may not know uh, what we're in for. So I want to talk about menopause. There's a lot of chit chat about peri. I'm peri. What do I need to know? I'm like, well, I don't know. Let's not complicate it. I hear this all the time. I need to know if I'm in peri. I'm like, do you? Don't you just need to focus on the fact that you're over 45? It's highly likely that any changes to your period, any changes to your physiology or physical experience of that is likely due to hormones. Let's resolve that part rather than trying to get some diagnosis, which may be evasive, to be honest, and I'll explain the reasons why. There's some foods that are super important for all of our lifespan, but particularly during menopause. And there's exercises that during this transition, it's a delicate transition. If we flog ourselves and we haven't got hormone balance, which I call autonomy, we will suffer. And the mindset is really important, which is why, I've been doing these webinars for many years now, but moving into 2026, I'm doing a lot more corporate. So I'm glad you're on, because this I won't be doing a lot of these into the future unless it's corporate. So I'm glad you got to experience this. And at the end, I'm going to share my number one secret. Menopause was something that was meant to be done quickly, not 5 to 10 years. But if you're not familiar with my work and who I am, I started nursing back in 1987. I nursed until my last shift was in 2016, but I deregistered in 2020. And I also had 9 years in pharmaceuticals. I got they called it a MedRep diploma in pharmacology from Sydney Uni, and I worked in 9 years in pharmaceuticals. So I'm not anti this, anti that, but I have definitely a very strong bias to natural things, to what I would call agency and sovereignty in your health, which is if there's something going on that might need immediate pharmacological intervention, fabulous, but work out the reason why your body responded that way. Because until you do, you're really on a drug, and that's it, full stop. So I've got to change this slide. Since 2002, I've had my own business now, helping women, written multiple books, 10 published books, a couple of bestsellers. The one on the left was the first one I wrote in the hormone series, and that was about endometriosis and polycystic ovary syndrome in women, Became a bestseller very quickly. I was on Today, Today Tonight, Sunrise, interviewed around the world with that book because what I unpacked was that we actually do know what causes endometriosis. We do know what causes polycystic ovary syndrome, and a pill is not going to fix it. Highly successful results using natural medicines. The menopause book I wrote about 2011, and I wrote that book because Australian Tourism put me forward to be interviewed by Oprah. That was her first time she came out. So I wrote that book, wasn't interviewed by Oprah because you probably would have heard of me by now. But it's helped lots of people. It's a very easy, what are your options in menopause sort of book. And I haven't done another edition of it because it's still the same. Nothing has changed, except the push now is that you're all broken and we need HRT, which is a little bit of a opportunistic spin. It's like saying everyone with weight loss needs Ozempic. No, they don't. They probably need to eat better. Anyway, I do have three kids and got to play golf with one early this morning. I went through menopause in 6 weeks once I cottoned on to what was happening. And those are the kids down the bottom left from last year. And these are some of the books I've written. I have been on TV multiple times over different topics, hormones, food, different things. And at 47, the young age of 47, which is 9 years ago now, golly, actually, it's going to be 10 years soon, I went through menopause and I actually thought I had a virus. And you can put in the chat if you can relate to this, but I was going over to Bali a lot, holding retreats and doing, learning about food more than I'd already learned. So I've got a bachelor in health science, specialising herbal medicine, naturopathy, and nutrition. So I'd had this business and was really talking about hormones, I'd say every day of my life, 10 times a day. And yet for this week, I'll never forget it, I started waking, sweating. I thought, oh gosh, you picked up malaria. And that's what I thought. I thought I had malaria. So it's about the fifth or the sixth night in of these flushes and broken sleep. And I went, oh, hang on, I haven't had a period. And I felt like it snuck up on me, but I was 47. And this is where I see women going down this rabbit hole of wanting a diagnosis of premenopause or perimenopause. Who cares? I knew at that point my hormones were not balanced. Was never going to change, and it doesn't with my clients, our approach to this. So I started putting the pieces together. It was like no period. My skin had been dry. I was having these flushes, which I thought were virus, but they weren't. My body was aching. If you've had this before, your shins ache, like someone's got a baseball bat and hit them. Your hips can ache. Everything can ache. Now they talk about it now being cortisol. Of course, it's cortisol. It always was, always will be. So that's why burnout is a really big component of this. And I was starting to put on weight, which had never, I mean, I'm a woman, of course, weight's a concern, but the things that had worked in the past were no longer working. And I think that's where I started to go, oh, okay, this is what everyone's talking about. Things change, and you can feel like you're losing control. I didn't like it. And here I was, an expert in the area, and I was still going through this myself. So no one is immune from this. But then, fortunately for me, I had the tools and the resources at my fingertips, and the rest was pretty simple. So I changed some foods, I changed around what exercise I was doing, and I made this absolute resolution that I was not going to make this drag on longer than it needed to. I was going to make health my number one priority, and it only took 6 to 8 weeks. And these are my kids. I was a single parent for 17 years. I needed to. I needed to sort it out rapidly. Now, often I hear women say to me, oh, I don't have the money. I go, okay, well, let it drag out for years. You find money for other stuff. Find the money to do the things that need to make you healthier. I didn't have a choice. I was running a business. I had children who relied on me. I could have used lots of excuses, but I knew I needed to put myself number one so everything else would flow. And that was very important to me. So I went through it in 6 weeks. Now, there's a lot of information out there, and ironically enough, in the world of so much information, ever than before, you can get off your phone, you can do a degree on your phone if you like. Women are more confused than ever before. And I would suggest that some of the information out there is absolutely incorrect and misleading and, biased. You're broken, you need a drug. So, globally, this has been happening for a couple of years now. Health professionals are saying that women are not making hormones, that they're broken, that they need HRT. We haven't just got to 2025, now 2026, and suddenly all gone broken. There's a reason why we're not making adequate hormones. Of course, we're making hormones. It's the most stupidest statement ever. We're making hormones. We're just not making enough of the right ones and possibly too many of some others, which I'll show you some examples of. I've got a real issue with, and this is just a personal bugbear. People who've got thousands and thousands of people on the Instagram accounts giving out information about uh, menopause, or they might be on TikTok. They've never had a baby, and they're 30, and yet they're the people we're listening to. It doesn't make sense. And someone said to me something about male doctors the other day. Oh, I know. I did a clip on male menopause, which men go through at 38, 39. It's called andropause. And there were some guys that were going, "Oh, what would you know? Female telling us about our health." And I thought, I didn't reply, but I thought, mate, we have lived through generations of women being told by men who've never had a period, just take your uterus out. So it's time we understood our own physiology better so we can make decisions that feel in line with our values. Now, interesting, this is from, I just got this off APH, the Australian Parliamentary House Commission. I looked into it. The committee recommends the Department of Health and Ageing, which is, I won't name the politician, but oddly enough, I sat next to her for an hour coming back from Canberra in July, that we actually start doing more research into women. That we have a national menopause and perimenopause campaign, because here's some stats. Between the ages of 45 and 64 in Australia, currently there's 3,200,000 women going through the change of life. 80% of them have a symptom. 80%. And that's impacting on their work, massively on the economy, on depression. It's calling on our resources. And I would like to be part of this advice that goes out to women, that providing resources for them, that you're okay. This is normal. It's not a drug. Sorry, it's not a disease. This can be managed, but you need to do some things. Now, there are some false things that people believe. Mum didn't have symptoms, I'm going to be fine. This is so defunct. Whatever was happening with your mum was probably 20 plus years ago now. It's a very, very different health landscape. The foods they were eating were less chemicalized, less processed, very different. You've heard me say on this one already, and you'll hear me say it again and again and again. I'm not making hormones. Of course, you're making hormones. You need hormones to breathe. Your heart needs hormones to beat. Hormones are the body's internal postal system. So if it wants to take a message from one part of your body to another, it uses a thing we call hormones. Now, there's adrenaline, there's insulin, there's glucagon, there's aldosterone, there's TSH, thyroid hormones, sex hormones, progesterone, estrogen, cortisol. We make about 50 odd hormones, and so do men. So to suddenly come out with this thing that, oh, you're not making hormones, just honestly makes me go, stop. And I'm hoping after tonight that you'll become a bit of a voice piece around your friends as well, and go, actually, I heard this lady and this is her take on this, and we need to understand we do make hormones, otherwise we're dead. So we do make hormones. There's another belief that you can't control the symptoms, you have to go with it. And women are being told that it takes 5 to 10 years to go through menopause. No, it doesn't. That's just women who aren't getting correct advice might take that long, or don't go and seek help. That's just also another myth. So if you're in menopause, you're not broken, you do not have a disease. It just means that at this point in time, your hormones aren't balanced. And the beauty of that is if you know what your hormones are doing, you can rapidly bring them back into balance. So I do a lot of hormone testing. This menopause is a transition, just like going from childhood to puberty, puberty to young womanhood, starting to have periods, pregnancy, postpartum. All these things are natural. They're not diseases and they should not be treated as such. We get massive hormone changes along the way, and that's why being a woman is such an honor. But it is also such a confusing thing at times because the advice we're getting is often from that male doctor who I said sees it very differently to how nature intended it to be seen. I'm not anti-medicine, HRT. If you want to go and have it, do it, but still do the basics, which is food, nutrition, mindset, exercise, etc. Now, when you have balanced hormones, and I see this with my clients all the time, the body takes care of itself. It's like if you have a swimming pool and the filter's working correctly, it's very little maintenance. The filter takes care of the body. The water's always, crystal blue. It feels inviting and you feel content with it. If the filter's goofed up or there's something pouring into your pool that you feel you've got no control of because you haven't gone and looked at the root source, it will feel out of balance and you will start to resent having the pool there because it looks murky all the time. But if you go back to the root cause of why it's not being balanced, you will get wonderful results. So just to recap on the reproductive system. So definition of a woman, I'm pretty sure, is this: having a uterus and ovaries and the ability to reproduce internally. So we carry the babies. And it looks like a crude drawing, but it's the simplicity of a very sophisticated, miraculous system. Honestly, I just think falling pregnant is just such a miracle. What women are able to do is just remarkable. It truly is. But when when our grandmother conceives our mothers, we have our eggs determined at that point in time. And there'll be maybe a million eggs on either side. They're called ova. Then when we go from, I was saying, a young girl into puberty, there's a sudden spike in estrogen and we start having a period. And that's actually generated by a part in the brain called the pituitary gland. And it uses two hormones, so two of those postal services, to go down to the ovary and says, hey, ovaries, hatch one of the eggs. So one of those eggs will pop out and the ovaries take it in turns. If there's any sperm hanging out in the area, they might collide. There might be a conception. And then the second part to that is an impregnation within the uterine wall. If that doesn't happen, then we flush it out, have a period or menses period. And then once all the eggs have done that over a period of time, which is usually our 45th, 46th, 47th, 50th year, they're all done. There's no more eggs. Now, interesting, these eggs make quite a few hormones, but the two key ones are, and that's to prep that womb or that uterus, the same thing, this lining for the pregnancy, are called estrogen and progesterone. And it's a dropping off the progesterone that says to the body, hey, I'm not pregnant, I'll flush it all out and reset. Now, the female body, as I said, is just remarkable. It doesn't suddenly stop making those hormones. The adrenal glands start making those hormones because the eggs have stopped. And over a period of months, years, as the eggs get weaker and the progesterone levels aren't as high, the body starts going, oh, better get the adrenals kicking in along the cortisol pregnenolone pathway. If the woman's burnout, that won't happen seamlessly. Now, so this is the adrenal glands, and if you want to, ladies, put your hands behind your back. Just sit up a bit taller now. Put your hands and your thumbs just underneath your ribs, and you can pat them even if you like. That's where your adrenal glands sit. They're two glands about the size of your thumbnail on either side. They live above your kidney, and Possibly one of my favorite. I've got massive respect for the adrenal glands. They do so much. They make aldosterone, corticosteroids. They make cortisol, estrogen, and testosterone. See, we do make hormones from other parts, not just the egg. Epinephrine and norepinephrine, in Australia we call them adrenaline, noradrenaline. They're important for your blood pressure. And peptides, somatostatin and substance P. So your adrenal glands take over making those sex hormones. We're not broken. We do make hormones. Thank you. Full stop. Now, what happens during menopause? Well, if we want to diagnose it, you can go to your GP and get, oh, well, even me if you don't want to go to GP, but GP is able to do a blood test for you, checking your FSH or follicle stimulating hormone. It will start to go up as those ovaries are less responsive. So we can see that happen in women over the age of 40, 45. And this is where people get caught up with the whole terminology. Am I peri? Am I pre? It's like, it doesn't really matter. If your hormones are starting to change, you might start skipping periods. There might be 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 months. FSH will start to go up. If that's happening, help and you don't want a baby, well, that's okay. You're in menopause. You can make it go through quicker. Or if you're not having symptoms, just let it run its course. I use saliva testing. It's considered to be the gold standard. When you look at the literature in Australia, it says blood testing is the gold standard for hormones. It's actually quite inaccurate. And that's because when you do a blood test, it depends on what the person's had to drink or eat the night before, what their protein levels are like. There's so many factors. With a saliva test, excuse me, it's the active hormone that we're measuring. Typically, it's happening between 45 and 55, though I'm hearing from a lot of women who are 38, 39, who are being told they're going through early menopause. And I say to them, you probably burn out until we prove otherwise. And then the symptoms, pretty classic. Excuse me, aircon's kicking in here. It's a bit of a nuisance because I talk so quick and I'm drinking some water and then the aircon kicks in and then I get dry. So let me just, this won't let me. No, sorry if I start to cough. Now, I was talking about burnout. The new thing in 2026, and you'll hear me talking about it, it's not new, but this is where I will be turning the needle back in this country and beyond, that women are broken in menopause. I will be explaining more and more and more the cortisol pregnenolone still pathway. This one's not demonstrating, this person is burnt out. To have cortisol that low, they're either very sick or they're incredibly burnt out. When this happens, that's produced in the adrenal glands. They will not make progesterone. And despite what women are being told that this is a estrogen deficiency disease, it is not. Most of the time, it is a progesterone issue. My experience, about 30, 40% of women drop their estrogen, maybe 20% normalize it. So they've had high and they go to normal. And there's still about 30% that have high estrogen in menopause. Now, these things I hear every day, even in the streets, like hanging out, just, restaurants and things, I'll hear this. I don't sleep, and maybe it's because of my age. I don't know. Maybe we're just talking about it more, but I feel the conversation on the street is very much the menopause woman trying to put together the jigsaw pieces. And people are not on their own when they're feeling the menopause weight or the flushes or the low energy or they don't want sex. Now, if we pull it back to what's changed in the last 30 years when this has really spiked, sure, we might not have been talking about it as openly in the 70s and 80s and before that, but I know things have changed. I've been in the game now into my third decade and I see what's happening. Women are more burnt out. So the common symptoms, and you can put in the chat which ones are affecting you if you like. Flushes. Now, this is a bit of techno talk. A flash is like a heat wave. A flush is when you sweat. Doesn't matter. They're awful. I remember when I was having mine in my, um, thought my malaria nights. Um, it was like acute anxiety. I just remember it's almost like a instantaneous surge of anxiety is how I'd describe it. But then there'd be the heat after it and almost like a suffocation feeling or an anxiety feeling. I really hated it. Um, the broken sleep. So you wake up in the middle of the night, go, oh gosh, I thought it was, 5 a.m. and you go, oh my gosh, it's only 1. And you cannot go back to sleep for an hour or two. Like it's just punishing. Belly fat, headaches, mood swings. We might get different smell about us, anxiety, memory fog is huge. It is a transition. So as I've shown you physiologically, our adrenal glands and our fat cells start making those hormones that our eggs used to. However, if you're not eating the right foods, if you're not prioritizing your health, if you're overworking, it's possible and very likely you're going to struggle. Now, the thing is, this is very interesting, ladies, and this is another thing you're going to be hearing me say. I've moved a lot back into corporate this year because I believe that if I can help leadership understand menopause, where there's 3 million women in Australia going through menopause, I have a better chance of helping the one-on-ones. Because, one person has to, with, this knowledge has to kind of, I think if I can help CEOs and things understand what's happening in women at the workplace, I'm going to impact on a lot more women. Now, interesting. We're all being told, oh, menopause, you've got low estrogen, you need estrogen replacement. I've already mentioned in my clinic of, over 20 odd years, about 30-40% drop estrogen. About 30% have high estrogen. If you give them estrogen, they're going to get headaches, weight gain, depression. Oh, but it's okay. We can put them on something else. It's not okay. They're the high risk women. We need to do the right testing, and that's not necessarily being done. If it's a blood test, and look, honestly, up until 2 years ago, women weren't even getting a blood test off their doctors for menopause. So I guess it's an improvement, but it's the wrong test. High estrogen mimics, in many cases, low estrogen. So you can have flushes if you're high or low, weight gain, cellulite. Cellulite is pretty indicative of high estrogen. Um, Weight that won't budge, mood swings, I call it Bridget Jones. Laughing at the TV, crying into a tissue the next. Headache, self-doubt, and over texting. Now, because I've been doing this so long, I get a feel, but I never ever guess what a woman's estrogen is doing in menopause. I don't rely on blood tests. I usually tear them up. I do a saliva test. I want to know accurately what she's got, too much or too little, because the treatments are quite different. And here's one of those examples. High cortisol, very low progesterone, so flushing, broken sleep, very low DHEA, this person's burnt out, but they've got high cortisol, which is produced by the adrenals. So they're wired, but they're very tired. And then this toxic mix, this is really bad news for women. High estrogen, low progesterone. That's what I typically see in women who can't lose weight, in um, reproductive cancers, breast, ovarian, uterine cancers, etc., sin changes. So estrogen promotes our reproductive tissue to grow. If you've got low progesterone, it needs to be addressed. It really does. So that's I think based on that alone, I just wish Medicare would cover saliva testing. It doesn't. It only does blood testing. And 20 odd years ago, doctors used to say it's a waste of time to do a blood test for hormones. These hormones, yeah, it is. It still is. But unfortunately, they're not covering saliva testing. Now, testosterone can change in menopause as well. So women can go from having very high testosterone, which is endometriosis, heavy periods, PCO, aggression, athletic woman, competitive woman in the workforce, to very low. This lady's testosterone is very low, and I find that quite a lot in menopause. And they almost lose their fight. They just go, I can't be bothered. I've just got no motivation. They certainly have no sex drive, but low energy, low desire, or, they lose that passion, and that can be low testosterone. So I've mentioned this before. The adrenal glands are in our bodies for multiple reasons. They make incredible amount of hormones, but particularly they pick up the slack after menopause when it comes to making our sex hormones. Our beautiful little adrenal glands, they need to be looked after. Now, this is the cortisol steal pathway, and I just wanted to let you know that I studied this stuff multiple times in my uni over multiple degrees, my nursing degree, my pharmacology, my this, that, and this is the science behind menopause. So when anyone says, oh, naturopaths don't know what they're talking about when it comes to balancing hormones, ask them if they can regurgitate the cholesterol pregnenolone pathway because I tell you I can. I learnt this stuff inside out. So this is one of our pathways in our body, which shows you cholesterol is so important. It's a sterol ring or a fat ring, and from it we make all these other beautiful hormones. Cortisol will steal, though, from progesterone. And cortisol is a stress hormone. And what I'm seeing again and again, if the woman's not burnt out, she's still hypersecreting stress and she will steal from progesterone. And a lot of the symptoms, the flushing, the sweating, the weight gain, the low sex drive, the dry skin, the brain fog is due to the pregnenolone steal pathway. And I'm hoping in 12 months' time you'll say, my God, I heard that first, and now it's all over the news. Because at the moment the focus is all on estrogen, I think it really needs to swing back to the problem, which is progesterone. So it's called the pregnenolone steal pathway. Adrenal glands making all these other beautiful hormones, cholesterol, pregnenolone, progesterone, cortisol goes down through here, through the mitochondria of the cells. And this is why a lot of the research is showing that, and this is general information only, ladies, please reach out if you want to do any testing or one-on-one sessions with me, which is usually involving a test. I don't just see people for a one-off consult. I tend to use programs. But there's a lot of research looking at how can we facilitate this pathway, and creatine monophosphate is one of those things that has been shown to dramatically help with menopause brain fog, dramatically. Not just creatine, but anything that helps the mitochondria of the cell, which is the energy house, which is things like CoQ10, lipoic acid. B5 and B6 help the adrenals, but anything where we can support the cell through this pathway should stop this cortisol steal because it's stealing the progesterone. I do cortisol testing over the day, and it gives me an indication of how burnt out women are and why they aren't able to make, say, progesterone or even estrogen, because it's a good reflection of adrenal glands. Interesting, last week all the results we got back were in the 40s and 50s. They were wired up women. This one is pretty on the other side. She's a 3 out of 4. She's fatigued. She's waking up exhausted. We need to get her adrenals going again so she can start making her progesterone and estrogen naturally. This is just another one showing that pregnenolone steal pathway. So progesterone commonly drops. Actually, in the last couple of months, I've had 2 women out of, plethora who've had, I'd say, normal progesterone. It's so unusual during menopause. Most women drop it, and when they bring it back up into normal levels, they feel like a different woman again. So temperature control goes back to normal. Sleep goes back to normal. People feel better in themselves. Their skin glows. Everything comes back into harmony when your hormones are balanced. I call it autonomy. So what are some of your treatment options? Now, this is general information only. I recommend with everybody if you think about bioidenticals, don't get your information from Instagram. Maybe do research, but have a chat to a professional in the area. Same with HRT. Ask them, now that, this whole thing that drugs don't have any side effects and blah, blah, blah. All drugs have a side effect. They have to because they're blocking a pathway or they're augmenting a pathway. I prefer natural because I think our bodies were designed to do it. And in the world of feminism, I think it's the most feministic, active thing we can do, proactive, to look after ourselves. Address those foundations. If we're invested in our health, well, why don't we eat healthy? Why do we take shortcuts? Why do we give everyone else wonderful meals when we have toast for ourselves. It doesn't make sense. We have to put health up the top and everyone else benefits. So these are some things you can do. Now, Marie, she came and saw me in, oh gosh, now 2016. My gosh, it seems so weird, like 10 years ago. I feel like it was only yesterday. That's her on the left-hand side. That's her 6 weeks after. Did a saliva test. We worked out what hormones were out with her. We changed, and we changed two foods. That was it. Whoosh. These are her words. She was about 45, 43, I think, when she came. And she had heard me speak in no, Brisbane. And she said my body was in a mess. Menopause had got a hold of me in a not so nice way. My weight was a great burden for me in a way that was holding me back in performing to my full potential. Business, family, and life were a struggle. I knew my body was not how it should be functioning and understood that menopause and the symptoms I had were the most contributing factors to me not feeling well, being overweight, and at times so over it, all I wanted to do was sleep. I didn't want to exercise and I had no energy. Days of lying on the lounge, wondering when it would all end, seeing my friends and partners look at me differently and reading their eyes and telling me, you just look horrible. I had to do something, and Sam was found. I remember she's such a beautiful soul, and she's still alive. And it was awful because she just said, I'd cry. She looked at herself. She'd actually had an operation 18 months earlier, laminectomy for her back, and she'd been a dancer. And she was going to a physio twice a week, but still couldn't walk. She's like, what are you doing? My gosh, let's do your hormones. So we did. So within a few consultations, we addressed exactly what she needed and what was, and we made, there's no point me having theories if the person can't execute it. So I always work with people to find out what they can commit to. It's not hard. We just make a couple of twists, changes, and they have my full support. And then it's just, it's just wonderful watching things change. So she lost weight, as I said, pretty quickly. She didn't after a week, I think she started to want to walk because she hadn't been walking. She was in too much pain. But all that inflammation reduced. She just started naturally walking. And then, yeah, she got through it pretty quick. She goes, back then I was a very unhappy, lethargic, overweight, menopausal woman. Today I'm very happy, energetic, woman loving life and love reading the new eyes that look at me now. I love Sam as much as I love life. She's been my help and continues to help and support where needed. Thanks, Sam, from Marie. Now, I hear from Marie probably every 2 years. She is, she dealt with this. She put herself at the top of the not the Christmas tree, but the priority list, and helped herself. She gave herself permission to do that. She did what I asked or suggested she did do. Massive change, hasn't looked back. So let's look at some of the foods. And you can, we're coming into the weekend. Please go to your farmers markets, find out who and where in your local space you can get veggies direct from your farmer. If you can't, see if they can be delivered. We have to support our farmers by going as direct to them as we can and chemical free as much as we can. When you're eating well, you go to the loo every day, you don't have the bloating, you have good energy levels. Now, these are just general information things, but really powerful. I know if you can reduce these heavy clogging foods, now I would refer to them as all the white things, the pastas, the risottos, the sushi, the mashed potato, the scalloped potato, crowd favorite, the roast potato, another crowd favorite. But if you can pull back on them or reduce them or time them around, your walk, that's going to make a big difference. Now, interesting, the next comment I've got there about animal proteins. I have witnessed and seen and experienced firsthand during menopause and during this transition, your body's quite tired. That's the only reason you're getting symptoms. And breaking down things like roast pork, roast lamb can put a big toll on the body. So if you can reduce them and increase plant proteins, which are much easier for the body to break down. So I think I've got a picture somewhere coming up. Chickpea patties or, nut meats and things, not necessarily nut meats because some of them have a lot of chemicals, but move to more nuts and seeds and maybe fish rather than the heavy dark meats takes the burden off your body and it does make a difference. I mean, at this stage, we want to take 5%ers, okay? We want to help your body transition by taking all the effort away from it so it can just slide through this time in your life. I am not a fan of dairy, and I won't go into my TED talk on that, but let's just say that animal milk, whether it's camel milk, is for baby camels, baby dog milk for dogs, cow milk for baby cows, human milk for baby humans. Nowhere do we see any species cross having milks from other animals. So, not a fan of dairy. It sets up a lot of inflammation. It can inflame the thyroid, inflames your mucous membranes. It's unnecessary. We don't need to do it. And then the silent killer, which is in a lot of things, is sugar. Now, I do another webinar on um, fat tummies and how to, worry weight and that extra ring around our tummy and why we get that. A lot of it is an insulin spike. So if you can start reducing the sugar, if you have 2 teaspoons of sugar in your tea, drop it to 1. You can do that over a month. You won't notice it. Or move to honey and have half a teaspoon of honey, reduce that. Cakes, biscuits, sugars, lollies, they're not doing you any favors. They're not adding to the equation here. But I appreciate they might be filling something for you. They might be giving you energy. So that's why we need to address what's happening at the hormone level and do a saliva test. I'm just a massive fan of supporting our farmers. There's no point virtual signaling. We need to go to our farmers as direct as possible or grow our own. Herbal teas are very powerful. I remember years ago I had a lady, Helen, actually, she had sage growing out the front of her house. And she would tell me that she would pick 3 leaves a day, boil it, and make it like an infused seeping tea, and that got rid of her flushes. So Mother Nature has been very kind and provided us resources literally at our front door. Once again, taking the burden off your body, buying organic is a must. It's a non-negotiable. And that same minister I was referring to before, she's like, oh, the average Australian can't afford to eat organic. And I thought, sweetie, the average Australian cannot afford not to eat organic. If you want to have a healthy body that doesn't have to process chemicals, weedicides, pesticides, Roundup, glyphosates, etc., we have to eat organic. We have to support those farmers that do that. These are some chickpea patties. I've got 8-week eating plans for women going through menopause. It explains menopause and it's got lots of recipes and different things. And this is one of those. This sounds quite boring, but it's actually really beautiful. It's a broccoli soup. And broccoli's got an enzyme in it which helps balance, well, it helps cleanse the liver, but it also helps balance hormones. So this is just how simple these recipes are in the 8-week eating plans that I've got. Don't worry, it's not all just, stirring your water with carrot, throwing the carrot away. It's sustainable, healthy, people feel full on it, and it balances hormones. Oh yeah, I do hair testing. Now there's multiple hair tests if you've been to a naturopath before. There's different things we can measure about your body to get a picture about your detox pathways or your gut health or your heavy metal load. I generally fall like when I do a 3-month program where people can come and see me over 3 months, and depending on their symptoms and what they're trying to achieve, I'll do various testings. But my core health program always includes the hair test and a hormone test. Now, with the hair test, that will tell me what's happening or what they've been absorbing over the last 3 months. And, as I said, years of doing this, I never guess. I love to test because it tells me specifically for that person what they need to increase in food, what they need to reduce in terms of their body or their burden. So this person, you can see on the left, the summary page, the adrenals needed attention. The hormones were out. They had needed some emotional work and some microbalance. It's a brilliant test. The 2 tests that I mainly do, the hair test and the saliva test, do not require needles and can be done from home, which it's convenient. You can just do it when you want to do it. It doesn't involve pain. You don't have to tee it up with a lab. So easy. Interesting, this person also had low iron. I see that a lot. So there's 35 pages. It breaks down what the person might be missing. Phytoestrogens are important during menopause. They're things like your green leafy veggies, phytoestrogens, genistein, and there's three actually. They're found in things like soya or tempeh, green leafy veggies. Now, the good news is this, with a bit of attention and the hair testing, the hormone testing, or just some of those food suggestions, can go a long way to improvement very quickly. Sharnad, I'm good friends with her sister, and Sharnad's an exercise physiologist. So she came and saw me a few years ago, and she said, Sammy, this was her test, her comments. I've been supporting women going through menopause as an EP for years, and I really believed I would sail through it when the time came, given the fact I was relatively fit and healthy, which she is. But how wrong could a girl be? Very quickly, I became a sleep deprived, sweaty, teary, exhausted mess, and I felt like I'd lost control of my mental and physical health for the first time in my life. You may relate to this, ladies. The work I did with Sam helped me gradually shift my health back from this bleak feeling of burnout with helps of supplements and giving me permission to prioritize my own health. I've rebuilt my mojo and my joy and my energy levels. I feel grateful to be sitting here today to regain my life force. Thanks, Sam. Now, this is really important, the permission to prioritize your own health. And more so than any other cohort that I speak to, women who have, I'm 56, we really struggle with that. We feel selfish. I hold retreats in Bali to show us that self first is the only way forward. But let's look at exercise. Exercise does need some spotlight. Doing marathons will not help, but doing nothing will not help. So we need something in between. I make it very simple. You can do up activities or down activities. This dragging tire stuff has to stop if you're going through menopause. So high impact are going to drain those adrenals that we're really wanting your adrenals at this point to kick up and kick spark and take over the sex supply, the production of progesterone and testosterone and estrogen. If you're flogging yourself mentally at work, mentally in relationships, physically in boot camps or whatever else, mining or whatever, shift work, whatever it is, you will potentially struggle. So up activities are these sort of activities, heavy weights, light weights, fine. And the lady before, I think it was Victoria, about the bone density, lifting weights is fine. Two personal training sessions a week, great. But going bonkers with weightlifting, potentially detrimental. Boxing classes, dragging tires, extreme sports. Just get your hormones balanced first, then you can do these activities. But if you try and do them while you're transitioning, chances are you're going to keep your battery a bit flat or drained. So down activities have much greater impact. They result in fat burning. They can be relaxing and they balance your hormones. So this is what I'm a fan of, this sort of stuff. This was me when I was doing Tai Chi, Pilates, bushwalking, yoga, swimming. I did golf today with my son. I don't know if we can count that as exercise, but it was good. But these down activities, you're moving yourself, you're putting your body under some stress, you're using your muscles, but you're not flogging yourself. It's very important. Now, herbs and supplements, general information only. I'm always reticent to give out information because I know a lot of women are very good at this backyard medicine. Oh, talking over the fence. Oh, this worked for me. Oh, I'll race out and you must get this. And honestly, horses for courses, and it's important, I think, to consult with a physician, someone like myself, a nutritionist or a naturopath in your area. Order something from my website. I work remotely via Zoom. But these things are generally safe for most people. So flax seeds. I don't know if you've heard of them, but this is what the little things look like. They're seeds. They're nutty, they're crunchy. You can grind them and put them in smoothies or salads. You get flaxseed oil, which is quite disgusting, but very healthy for you. Um, but have these omega-3s, omega-6s, and other hormone balancing properties like the phytoestrogens I was talking about. Herbs, incredibly powerful. I truly believe, as someone who's got pharmacology background and herbal medicine background, that herbal medicine led to the patent constituents in the herbs to create drugs. I prefer to use the herbs, the OG, the original stuff, because our body recognizes it. It doesn't overshoot the mark. It tends to be less fraught with side effects and adverse reactions, and it helps our body catch up to where we want it to be rather than telling it what it needs to be. So there's lots of herbs that help with menopause. There's rosemary. There's rosemary there. Throw it into food, chop it up, dry it out, put it into a tea. But might taste okay with some parsley. Um, Tansy, thyme, sage, coriander. Use all these herbs in salads and cooking as much as you can. If you want to grow them, and I recommend women grow their own herbs, when they get quite bushy, cut them with some scissors or trim them, dry them out in the sun over a couple of days, then crunch them in your hand and use them in cooking or in teas. This is just to show you again that pathway, the cholesterol pathway, pregnenolone down to progesterone. If we're stressed, it gets stolen into cortisol. So we need to manage a stress. I use lots of herbs here. You might have heard ashwagandha is kind of the herb of the day because it stops this steel pathway. B5, B6 is very important. Rhodiola, cordyceps, lion's mane. There's a lot of things that work on the adrenals in this level. Um, and then there's black cohosh and things that work down here, estradiol. I don't really like black cohosh, which is why I don't like a lot of menopause supplements that have a lot of things in them. I prefer to go single agents, and I prefer to help your body produce what it needs to produce at the higher level up here. Also, just to give you another biology lesson about the pregnenolone pathway in the mitochondria, which I was saying before, which is where creatine monophosphate's working. But don't start creatine monophosphate unless you know how to use it. It's necessary because it does come with some kidney warnings. You need to increase your fluid intake, and there's a way to take it. So just be cautious of that one. I tend to use a lot of passiflora that switches off, or passiflower that switches off the cortisol, so the person can then introduce lifestyle measures like meditation, walking, downshifting. I like ginseng. There's so many ginsengs, I won't go into them, but I'm very cautious not to heat a woman up. So it's a Chinese term when she needs to be cooled down. Schizandra, chaste tree, these are tyrosines of protein. The hair test picks all this up. It's fantastic, that hair test. Magnesium and zinc. So these are just common things that I'd use. Now, Kelly was a Sydney side, very successful one. She came and saw me about, I think she was 43, she might say actually. My journey to health and wellness really started about 8 years ago. Like a lot of women in their 40s, I wanted to lose weight, not only to look better, but to feel better and have more energy, be a better wife, mother, and business professional. She ran her own business. The problem was, after achieving this goal, I was still missing the vitality and energy that I so desperately wanted. I was eating well, exercising, practicing mindfulness and yoga, but still something's missing. Honestly, when women like Kelly come to me, I sometimes go, oh my gosh, they're just amazing. And I just go, oh my God, how incredible are you? But still, sometimes things can be missing. So Kelly did, my saliva test, hair test, and we had a couple of sessions. We worked out what was missing, tweaked a few things, and off she went because she was already doing the foundational stuff. Turns out she was flushing. Her moods were swinging. She did have a lot of insomnia, and her energy levels all remedied themselves. And her advice is to any woman feeling she deserves more is to put your hand up. And I totally concur. This is our year, girls, our year. Now, the successful mindset, you might need to do a little halftime stretch here. No, we're into the home stretch. The mindset is so important. You've heard me, I've got a lot more energy coming to 2026 because I know as women we need to sort this out ourselves. I'm going to support women this more than ever before because what I've been witnessing, women jumping on drugs to treat something natural, has made me shocked. I don't know how we've got to this point in life where we think the only way to treat ourselves is with a drug rather than addressing the underlying problem. The mindset's important. We've got to do the right testing for this. It will be an out-of-pocket expense. It's going to take time. It's going to take your focus, but it is the most empowered thing we can do. And this is what we're teaching our young girls to do. Be empowered. And we need to start leading the way. It's that same test. Excuse me. The low progesterone, look, it should be 800. I recommend measuring your baseline hormones. Get a plan together. I can help you with that. Give yourself time. If you're not, and we're about to, kickstart in earnest the year in a week, 2 weeks for many. If you're not spending an hour to 2 hours on your own health each day, you're possibly not going to be giving yourself enough. It also takes, apart from time and focus and knowledge, it does take money. Now, I used to be apologetic for that, like I owed women something. I don't, this is does the government owe us something? No, we owe it to ourselves to invest money into our health. I'm seeing on LinkedIn at the moment, health is your wealth, and it's true. We need to be thinking clearly, functioning clearly, being available in full energy and focus for those around us. And that does require, as I said, time, focus, energy, a plan, and spending money in daily actions. Um, it is a natural time, but if you run down, you may potentially struggle. There's another one here. Interesting. This person, their progesterone is okay, but look at their cortisol, very high. Estrogen really high. We need to get that estrogen down. Flushes, potentially, putting themselves in line of breast cancer with the high estrogen. We need to reduce that and reduce the cortisol. They're going to feel much better. So pop in the chat. Have you learned some powerful ideas? Because I'm about to share my number one secret with you. Pop it in the chat. Let me know what you've learned that you didn't know before. Hang on, I'll go back to chat is what I wanted. Weight gain, belly, sex drive. Let me go back to sharing my screen. Hard when you've got clumsy fingers like mine. Here we go. How do you get enough calcium without dairy? 120 milligrams a day. Okay, so just answer me, Victoria. Why do you think you need calcium each day? And I'm kind of leading you down a track in a way. Australian Dairy Foundation has been one of the most powerful political lobby groups we've had in Australia. We have been taught that we need, I went when I was in primary school, we used to be given a little 300 banana milk, chocolate milk, strawberry milk every day, calcium for your bones and teeth. Interesting. Pretty much every food has calcium in it. Meats have calcium in it. Nuts and seeds have calcium in it. Green leafy vegetables, broccoli. Calcium is one of the easiest minerals to obtain. In fact, the thing about bones, if that's what it's been told for, the worst thing a woman can do is take a calcium replacement and not have magnesium in there because it displaces calcium from the bones. And neurologists, fortunately, starting to jump up and down about it, but that's been published in the research for years now, years and years. And osteoporosis or weak bones is not necessarily low calcium or low estrogen. It's usually low progesterone, low magnesium, low vitamin D, low boron. That's what the research shows. So in Europe, they treat osteoporosis, which affects 50% of women in Australia over the age of 70. In Europe, they treat it like a magnesium deficiency. Weight gain, belly fat, no sex drive. Hopefully I've answered that. No sex drive, very common, particularly if women are burnt out, to try natural. Okay, thanks. Keep putting your questions in because I'll keep going and I'll share. So I'm hoping that you're going to try some of these suggestions. I'm giving this for you for free. This is gold, what I'm explaining, and I know it makes a difference. As I said, 5%, 8%, 10%. It's going to make a difference, not just to your menopause journey, but your overall health and mental well-being. Now, I do know from experience that there are people who are taught all this, and I've been doing this for years, who have it and then apply it, and they go, it's fantastic. Or they have it and they don't apply it. Now, if you're really serious, what I would suggest is this menopause program I put together. Now, it's the start of the year, so I do like helping people at the start of the year with things. Now, I thought I was fully recovered adrenal fatigue, but it was just being masked until menopause hit. Yes, I know. Have a saliva test on the fridge. Okay, good. See how they help you, Sharon. And if they don't, you can always QE, come back to me. Don't take South. Oh, yeah, it was bone density. I hope I've answered that, Victoria. Let me know. Because it's, yeah, as I said, the number one thing for bone density is weight-bearing exercise, vitamin C, boron, vitamin D, and progesterone is just as important as estrogen. Now, you might have a naturopath like Sharon, or if you don't, this is something I've been doing for years and specialised and had, I'd say, thousands now. I know I've had at least 9,000 one-on-one consults with women and probably in the hundreds of thousands through talks and things. So I've got together 8-week eating plans that help women understand menopause. I do lots of testing, hormone and hair testing, and help them just short chat, just let's just sort this out. Let's just go for what the solution is quickly. Now, the eating plans and the online menopause mastery, you can get that from my website. It's 497 on the website. Includes the happy female formula. Women love this. This is where I hear women going, "Oh, I'm so confused." I'm like, "Go to my happy female formula. It explains it all, helps women understand their bodies. Fantastic." The 8-week eating plans, these are designed to balance your hormones. They're not difficult recipes. They're designed for tired women who are confused or just want to fall back, and they definitely balance your hormones. My son was around today and I made the meatballs. So they're easy to make. They're for tired women, busy, and they balance your hormones and they help you feel confident again around food. They're not exclusive, so if you want to eat out, you can because it's about the protein carb principles. Rest of the family can eat them, mine have for years. The hormone, the happy female hormone there is there as well. Now, second part to it is the testing. Once again, you can go to my website at any point and measure for yourself a saliva test. I include the cortisol testing for free tonight and a hair test sample, which will take you through, as I said, the vitamins and minerals you might be low in, amino acids you could be low in. It highlights gut health and a few other, like a lot of other things. Really important you see if you're high or low in estrogen, what base nutrients will bring up that eclectic health for you. If you're producing enough testosterone, progesterone, really important to know. And it takes the guesswork out so you can really sharpen in what your body's craving and needs. And then menopause is a seamless journey. This person have very high testosterone. They're not going to lose weight. You can't lose weight with high cortisol, high testosterone, by the way. You just can't. So if you think about embarking on a weight loss plan in 2026, don't bother until you've done a hormone test because they're a waste of time until your hormones are balanced. Cell well-being test, as I said, I love this hair test. Good indicator of what's been happening in your body over the previous 3 months. Antioxidants, vitamins. So that's all included. You can order that anytime from my website. And the third part is getting a 1-hour consult with me. Now, I look at your past history. I've been doing this for years. I pick up things that a lot of people aren't picking up. We put in a plan. If you've got any questions, we can talk about it. Or if you want to work with me for 3 months, have more sessions, I can do that as well. So tonight I do have a a menopause special for the new year. So those plans, the online plans, the videos that come with it, my books that come with it, all for free as a resource library for you. You get to do your own testing. That includes the hair test, the saliva hormone test. Remember, blood testing can just lead you down the wrong track. You might think you're safe when you're not. And we get a consultation and strategy call together. Now, that comes to shy of 1997, but tonight I've got it for 1664, and you get all of that, and it's on this link. Now, what I'm going to try and do is put this link in the chat. And I was wondering if it would work. Interesting. I'm going to try again because it's And what I might try and do is just this. Share. Actually, pop your questions in while I try and get this link. I just want to put it in the chat for everyone. It's hard on my little laptop because I want to blame my fingers, but the keyboard's just a little bit. There we go. Let's put this in the chat. There, if you want to click on that, that hopefully will take you through to the link to purchase it. And if it's not for you, it might be for your girlfriends. I would appreciate you sharing it. But that's it there. But I'll give you all the additions tonight for free. Now, my hips and knees are very painful. Sometimes I can't walk or sleep on my sides. Yeah, Jody, that's really common. Um, Typically, what I find in that scenario is yes, it's menopause, often low progesterone, and often high cortisol. So, cortisol is very inflammatory, it's pro-inflammatory. So, cortisol does a few things. Like it's an essential hormone. It helps our body augment the stress response. So it's important to save our life, basically. So it goes up when we're under perceived threat or harm. Now, that's fine if there is a true threat or harm, but if we're doing it just because we're stressed at work or we're stressed about money or a relationship or something like that, and we're continually putting our cortisol up, we end up with a lot of inflammation. And that inflammation, so cortisol, high cortisol does a couple of things. It inflames our body, so you get these sore joints. It leads to belly fat. It steals progesterone, so you got all the symptoms of menopause. It impedes our sleep, so it stops melatonin being produced, and eventually it can go the other way where we don't produce enough because we've just worn out the adrenal glands, and then you end up getting sicknesses, coughs and colds, because it plays a really important role with our immunity and defense force and how we can fight back. So cortisol is really important to know what your levels are. Um, Thoughts on intermittent fasting? Different horses, different courses. Some people thrive on it. I think if you're burnt out, it's putting the cart before the horse a little bit. I don't necessarily think it's the panacea for everything. I prefer people are a bit more flexitarian. So if you feel like eating and you're not eating unconsciously, great. But if you're feeling you have to have a breakfast and you're not hungry, well, maybe don't. Yeah, okay, Victoria, might work for you to check your progesterone. No. I'll just go back through the questions. Any other questions, ladies, while you've got me on here? Beautiful. Yeah, so just click on that link. And as I said, if it's not for you, yes, exactly. So with the link, I'm giving you all the online programs as well. And what I have been also including the cortisol levels over the day. So with the cortisol checking, just I'll see if I can find the slide because that's not normally included with my normal core health, but I'll include it tonight. So we can just see how burnt out your body are. So you get 4 test tubes, and this what we'll measure. I don't know if you can see that slide behind there. And I'll do 4 tests. So it gets sent out from a lab in Victoria, and they post it up, and there'll be their little 5 ml test tubes. Is do one on waking, one late morning, one before dinner time, and one before bedtime. And that tells us what your cortisol levels are doing. And that tells me a lot about your adrenals. And if they're burnt out, like this one I'm showing on the screen now, quite burnt out, they're going to really struggle to make progesterone. So we have to top up their adrenals so they can even start making progesterone. Victoria's asked, are these programs for us to repeat or only for 4 weeks? Oh no, you can get access to them as part of the program ongoing, so you can repeat them if you like. But tonight's the special, that's right. But if you can have a look on my website, there's other things there that might be more what you like. It's just that's just a special for tonight to really kickstart 2026. And you'll hear me on socials talking a lot more about cortisol being the real issue here. Because we do make hormones. Yeah, so that's right. Cortisol is a snapshot in time. It's usually a good indicator. So what I say to people is to do it on a typical day. We don't want to check your cortisol levels if you're lying on the beach in Hamilton Island, relax. We want to do it on a typical day for you. So if you work, we'll do it on that day. And it's an indication, like anything. I mean, blood sugar levels swing, but when we're looking at a more accurate way, which is saliva, much more accurate than blood testing, it gives us a snapshot. Hair testing's great because it tells me what your body's absorbed over the previous 3 months. Now, if I want to check what your blood sugar level is right now, I'll do a finger prick test. If I want to measure what it's done over a longer period of time, I might do a blood test that's an HbA1ca, or we can look at other parts of the body that will give us that data. So, yeah, well, Victoria, it's up to you. I mean, if you have a teacher going back to school day, you might do it on that day. But my experience is teachers are pretty stressed nowadays. That's just my experience. There seems to be a lot of paperwork, and it doesn't seem to be the great job that a lot of people entered it for. Seems to be a hard slog, that's for sure. You deserve all those holidays off. So, but you might want to get the ball rolling beforehand. Totally up to you. Yeah, long service leave. Nice, nice. All right, ladies, is there any more questions? Pop them in chat. Thank you. Thank you. And spread the word with your girlfriends and sisters that, this is the year that we got our power back when we started to understand our hormones more. And we don't just think that we've got to outsource it to drugs because we don't. As I said, does everyone who's got a weight issue need to take Ozempic? No. And this is the same thing. There are many things and red flags in our lifestyle that can be fixed and amended or remedied to give us the absolute joy that we deserve. Because honestly, as I said, I'm nearly 10 years on the other side of this. Life's fantastic. More energy than I've ever had before. Like, it's just great. Right. I think incredibly clearly, probably clearer than 10 years ago when I had three little kids. Like, it's that the doom and gloom's being painted up, but it's not doom and gloom. Have a fantastic night, ladies. Thank you for being on. I really appreciate you giving so much time. And yes, I hope I didn't bombard you with too much information, but thank you again, and I hope our paths all cross. Okay, bye.